This is the Stories from the Field podcast, a Delaware Farm Bureau production, sharing real stories from local farmers while educating the public on the agriculture industry. Thank you for joining us again on the Stories from the Field podcast. My name is Macy Carter, and I am co-chair of the Delaware Farm Bureau Promotion and Education Committee. Today, we are at Salted Vines Vineyard and Winery here in Frankford, Delaware, with Adrian Mobilia. Adrian is a fourth-generation grape grower from Northeast Pennsylvania. His wife, Jessica, is from Western Kansas, where she grew up on her family's farm. Both found themselves settling here in Frankford, Delaware, where they began creating the vineyard and winery we see here today. In November of 2016, Salted Vines opens its doors and expanded and has grown ever since. The new building now includes a rustic tasting room, large covered patio, production room, patio service bar, and outdoor areas. In this episode, we'll dive into what it takes to run a vineyard and winery, the challenges behind the scenes, and the passion that makes it all worth it. So grab a glass, like us, of your favorite wine, and let's get started. Thanks for having us today, Adrian.
Well, thanks for coming.
This space is beautiful.
Thank you. This is the barrel room.
Nice. And what do you do here?
Well, the main purpose of the room is for wine to age in barrels. And then the other secondary purpose, as you see here, is this sort of stuff. Meetings, people rent the room out. We do all sorts of different tastings here in the room. We do blind tastings. We do vertical tastings. We do our salted vino experience in this room. So multi-purpose room.
Very nice. I like this. It's quiet and secluded and a good view.
Yeah.
Great. So I guess give us a little bit of your background. What inspired you to start this business?
Boredom. Believe it or not. I mean, it's funny, but as you said, I was born and raised on a fruit and vegetable farm. We had cherries, peaches, apples, about 50 acres of tree fruit. We had 200 acres of grapes. Then we had a vegetable garden for our roadside market. It was about 50 acres of tomatoes, watermelon, cantaloupe, stuff like that. Grew up in it, went to Penn State for horticulture, went home, worked with Dad on the farm. And then in 2008, I moved down here and was pretty bored. I'm not a beach guy. I don't like sand.
I don't either.
So for me, there was like nothing to do. So I called Dad one Saturday afternoon and I said, hey, we should open a winery here. We have a winery at home. And he goes, yeah, we'll do some research and let's look into it and we'll figure it out. So I did. And January 2nd, 2010, we opened as Fenwick Wine Cellars, hence the sign right there, down on Route 54. We rented a space, did a 6-year lease. We're in right where Mio Fratello's is. We were the other end of that building. Okay. And we opened up. And, about 2-3 years into it, the struggle was real. It was good. It was fun. But people, people didn't really know what we were, where to come in. So I reached out to SCORE, which is a free business consulting service all across the country. It stands for Service Corps of Retired Executives. And they came in, looked at everything. We did a bunch of interviews over the course of a couple weeks. And then Len Kidwell, who was my mentor, he called and said, okay, let's go to lunch tomorrow. I got it all figured out. And he said, you need to change your name, quit your job, and then change your location. Wow. I'm like, just that? And he goes, yeah, just that. So we started looking at locations. We found this land in 2014. We were able to finally close on it in early 2015. Planted the vineyards up front, started building the building. And then we closed down there, moved up here, reopened as Salted Vines. Mm-hmm. And then in 2018, I retired from my full-time job and just do this.
That's great. It's a great story. Yeah. Really was out of boredom.
Really was.
Maybe that's most entrepreneurs, yeah.
I think we like challenges. That's the issue, right? We see a challenge, we're like, yeah, I could do that. Uh-huh. But then you have it, now it's like, okay, now what do I do with it?
Right, starting this. Now, I think you kind of touched on it, but what was the biggest challenge that you had when you were starting out?
really the biggest challenge I had when I was starting out was the state of Delaware really didn't know what a winery is or was at the time. So that was back in 2010. There was only 2 other ones at the time. And the rules and the laws were very antiquated, very outdated. They didn't make a lot of sense compared to all the states around the state of Delaware. So when you look at New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Maryland and Virginia, they have hundreds upon hundreds of wineries. Yeah. Like Pennsylvania had 512 at that time. And you come to a state like Delaware where there's only 2, and it's like, well, why? It's not because of climate or soil, it's because of the laws. And it's just very prohibitive. So that was the biggest challenge, was understanding the differences from what I'd been accustomed to growing up in PA and having a winery for, years in PA. And then figuring out the legislative process and the who's who in Delaware and getting the laws changed to make it make sense. So that was the biggest challenge, probably.
Wow. So you had your hand in policy, and
yeah,
that's great.
Yep.
Trying to make it easier for people starting a winery.
Yeah, and it's continued the whole time, Macy, because just a couple months ago, not a month and a half ago, we just got the bill signed by the governor for direct shipping.
Wow.
So
that's right. Yeah.
So we've had that. Then back in 2000, I want to say it was 2019, Governor Carney he did the signing, and I have the pen from the law that allows us as a Delaware craft manufacturer to buy and resell other Delaware craft manufacturer products.
Nice.
So let's say that, you wanted to have your wedding here. By law before that, all you could have for alcohol was my wine. So if you wanted a beer or a special cocktail, you really couldn't do it because I'm a manufacturing property.
Got it.
There was one loophole you could do with the gathering license and stuff, but it really wasn't well written, and it just got circumvented a lot. And we went to the date and the ABCC office and said, look, there's this big hole here. There's all these languages in the states around us that already permit this. Can we steal shamelessly from these other states, take the parts we like, leave away the parts we don't like, put together a bill? And they both said they would support it. And we did, and we got bipartisan support. So now that allows me to sell, the Dogfish Head crafted beers or cocktails, or, Revelation, or allows Revelation to sell my beer, my wine.
Supporting local,
Yeah, so but that's been a constant thing, being involved in policy and trying to make the laws make sense for the current time.
Right. No, that's amazing. Using your voice to stand up for what you believe in, and that's what the Farm Bureau is all about too, definitely.
Yes, agree.
Now, we talked about how you started and how the business, came to light. Now, can you describe to me your vineyard, like how big it is? What types of grape varieties do you grow? Why do you grow them?
Sure. We've got 26 acres here on the farm. Probably about 22 of it will be plantable when we're done with, the buildings, the house, the driveways, the parking lots, the barn, stuff like that. So right now we have 6 acres planted. We have Merlot, we have Cabernet Sauvignon, we have Malbec, we have Vermentino, we have Chenin Blanc, and Pinot Noir.
Got it. And those varieties are all used in the wines that you produce here?
Yes, everything we grow gets turned into wine here, and then because demand for the wine is so much higher than what we grow, we have to go to growers and buy more grapes other than what we grow.
Got it. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. Over the time, though, we'll keep planting more, and hopefully someday we only need what we grow. But I don't know about that, just because of varieties, and a Riesling won't grow well here. It's too hot.
Got it. Now, what does a typical growing season look like for you?
Growing season starts off right around April 2nd to April 5th. We have what we call bud break. That's when the bud pops open and the leaves start to form and the shoot starts to grow. We'll have bud break and shoot growth from early April until right around June 6th, June 7th. We typically experience bloom here. So that's when flowering occurs and fruit set actually happens. Then from June 6th or 7th till about the second week of August, the berries are just sizing up. About the second week of August here, we typically experience a physiological stage of growth called veraison. And that's when enough sugar has built up in the berries that they start to turn color. So if it's a Merlot, for instance, it's going to go from a green pea-like structure, start to turn red and get striping on it. So that's our cue as growers that, you know, the fruit's starting to get mature enough that we need to start paying attention to it. Mm-hmm. So that happens, you know, mid-August. And then from there, depending on the year, the next physiological stage is maturity, and we go into the harvest. So this year we were early with everything, including bud break, flowering, and veraison. And then the weather really turned a little bit, and we haven't been hot and dry. We've been kind of cooler the last month or so with, you know, a little bit of rain. Mm-hmm. So harvest has been delayed. Normally this time of year, we would have already harvested the Vermentino and Merlot. The Malbec would still be hanging and be, you know, ready to harvest maybe in a week. And then the Cab Sauv would still be hanging. But right now, all 4 varieties are still hanging.
Wow.
So
it's a late harvest.
It's going to be a late harvest, which is fine. The leaves are in good shape. The fruit's in good shape. So I'm not really concerned about it.
Now, how do you harvest? Is that by hand? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Get some volunteers and go out with a pair of shears and start picking.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's delicate and very time consuming, I guess.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
If you get 10 or 15 volunteers, you know, everybody gets a 30-pound tote. You just kind of pick into it, then you dump them into the 1-ton bin on the tractor, and then you leapfrog to the front of the line. The tractor just kind of sweeps up the row. Very nice. So you can pick, you know, an acre in 2 hours pretty easily.
Got it. Yeah, I feel like not a lot of people are familiar with, you know, what it takes to have a vineyard, and not many around here in Delaware.
Yeah, probably not.
So I'm sure that people will find it very interesting. Now, aren't the vines, haven't they been established for many years? Like they stay?
Yeah, they're perennials. Yep. They're not an annual. So unlike corn and soybean that you replant every year, when you put these in the ground, they're there for, you know, it really depends, because a really bad freeze or winter could really devastate them. But generally speaking, we have a life expectancy of somewhere around 35 to 40 years.
Wow, that's a long time. So
if you prune them right and keep them healthy, keep them disease and virus free, pest free, like, you know, if you do your job, you can keep them easily. So at home, we've got vines in one of our vineyards that date back to the 1890s. Now, granted, it's not a winemaking variety. It's not a vinifera. It's Concord for Welch's, which is a Labrusca variety. Yeah. And those are own rooted. They're not grafted. So they're way more cold tolerant than a grafted vinifera is.
Right. Speaking of that, you know, how does our climate and our soil affect what you grow here?
Really, really well. So we have a great climate and great well-drained sandy soil for dry reds like this right here.
Okay.
So, you know, Teraldigo, Tannat, Malbec, Merlot, Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, Syrah, all that stuff we have a great climate for.
That's great.
The flip side is you can grow Chardonnay here. We're borderline Viognier, but some of the other stuff like a Riesling or a Chablis, like some of that stuff, it's just a little too warm here. So we're going to give the Chenin Blanc a try. There's a new vineyard you can go see when we're done over here of Chenin Blanc, and you know, we'll see how it goes.
That's great. So the whites maybe don't do so as
some
well.
Some of them, yeah.
Got it. That's good to know. Now that we've kind of talked about the vineyard stage and what's growing out there, what happens between when you're harvesting the grapes and then to get that glass of wine that we have right here? A lot.
I can tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
The secret.
No, it's really not that much of a secret. So when the grapes are ready and we bring them in, we do what we call receiving. So out here on the crush pad, you know, they go through the crusher stemmer, which separates the berries from the rachis. The rachis is the fancy word for the stem. So then the berries go through a crusher, which is 2 rollers that roll towards each other. And we adjust the gap based on the size of the berry. So all we're trying to do is break it open. And then they fall into a sump. And that contains now your skins, your seeds, the meat, and a little bit of juice is created. So we call that the must. And then that must gets pumped with a must pump into one of the tanks you saw out here in the room that we walked through. There, we're going to inoculate it with yeast. The yeast eat the naturally occurring carbohydrates, which is sugar, and through the chemical process called alcoholic fermentation, they turn those carbohydrates into alcohol. So like when we start with must, we have all sugar, no alcohol. We throw the yeast in, and then they start consuming consuming sugar, and they produce alcohol, and you have this inverse relationship. And then when alcohol stops rising and there's all the sugars depleted, the yeast will die, and they'll fall to the bottom of the tank. They're now called the lees, L-E-E-S, and they're a polysaccharide. So if they're nice and fresh and have good aroma, we're going to let the wine age on the lees. If for some reason they have a bad, foul smell, we're going to rack the wine off the lees and then discard them. At that point, you have what we call a dry wine. Then from there, especially reds, there's a 2 to 3 year aging process and fining. Wow. So we're going to adjust, pH, adjust acid, maybe add some mid-palate fat if it needs it, or structure. If you're going to do a sweet wine, you're going to sweeten it. If you're going to age it in oak barrels, you're going to put it in here for a year or two and let it sit. And then when you're done and you think it's all ready, you're going to combine it back to the mother tank, homogenize it. If you're going to filter, that's where you're going to filter, and then you get it ready to bottle.
Easy.
Easy peasy.
No, it's a very fine-tuned process. I can see.
Yeah.
And obviously with the aging piece, I guess it can take years for you to get what you're producing in your glass.
Yes.
Wow.
For aged dry reds, yes. For a sweet white or sweet red, it's 6 months.
Okay.
But some of these others, it could be 3 years.
Wow. That is intense. Which part of this whole process, is it the harvesting or the producing the wine, do you find the most rewarding for you?
The most rewarding for me, it's probably when I get to go out at night by myself, jump in the tractor and the sprayer, and just go spray at 10, 11 o'clock at night in the dark. Phone's not ringing, no one's bothering me, no one's asking me 4,000 questions. And it's just peaceful. I just like to go out in the vineyard at night and just spray.
Yeah. So you are a farmer.
Yes.
Farmer and business owner.
I would much rather be outside in the dirt getting sweaty than sitting in this room.
Oh, yeah, I understand. No, that's great. I think it's a unique perspective that you have, you're both having to be, the farmer and the business owner.
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, this type of business, and it really is an agritourism business at heart, but this type of business requires a lot of business skills.
Yes.
Because you've got a lot of staff, you've got budgets, you've got cost of goods sold. You have to look at, should you be in distribution, should you not, should you be direct to consumer? There's just a lot of things you have to be versed in.
Yeah. That's a good follow-up to what you just said. Are you mostly here on your stand at your store? People are coming here, or do you do wholesale? How's your business set up?
We are 99% retail through the tasting room.
Got it.
We don't do distribution. We just don't have enough inventory to do it. We sell out of everything we make every year. We do have some select people, local establishments that want to have our wine, that if they come by, they can, but we don't put it into distribution.
Got it. So you're right, direct to consumer here.
Yeah.
And that's gone well for you?
Yeah.
That's great. Have you used social media to help?
That's all we do.
Wow.
We don't advertise at all.
Really?
No.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you've seen success with it?
Mildly, yeah.
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 That's wonderful. So talking on the direct-to-consumer piece, I see that you do a lot of agritourism and have a lot of events and tours. How does that play into your winery?
It's 100% agritourism. So getting the general public to come to the farm, because we're a farm first, and we bonded the whole 26-acre property. So you can take your glass of wine, you can walk anywhere you want on the property. You can go up and down the rows, you can go out into the field, you get to go see all of it, at its most purest form. So that's what I think people enjoy, is they can come here, there's space to spread out and roam, and they get to walk up and down the rows and touch the leaves and look at the fruit. Then they get to come in and ask questions. We give them a tour. We show them, the bottling line, the crush pad, the tanks. And they get to do a tasting. And the tasting is really our opportunity to do educational purposes. Most people come in, 1 out of every 2 really doesn't know anything about wine or what they like.
Right.
And you'll ask them, when we do this, when we do the tastings back here, we start off, we say, what's the difference between a dry and sweet wine? Does anybody know? And half of them will raise their hand like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, what do you think it is? And like, the type of grape? Nope. When you harvested it? Nope. You go to the next person. Whether it was stored in a barrel or a tank? Nope. And you go down the line and no one really knows. And it's like, okay, at the purest form, the only difference is sugar. A dry wine has no sugar because the yeast converted it all to alcohol. A sweet wine, you either stop that fermentation and there's still sugar naturally there, or you fermented it dry and then you back sweetened with sugar. That's the difference between a dry and sweet wine. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised how many people just don't know that. And there's all these misconceptions about, they think that there's this club called like dry wines or something that only their wines don't have sugar. And it's like, no, any dry wine doesn't have sugar. Right. A sweet wine does have sugar. How much is measured by our residual sugar percentage. And that number, the higher the number, the more sugar it has.
Got it. So there is an education piece to it.
There's a huge education piece to it.
Nice. And you get that, backside when you do a tasting here.
Yep.
That's great. No, it definitely was really nice driving in and just seeing the rows of grapes, and it gives you like you are on a farm. It is agritourism.
It is. Yeah. It's
totally right.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about how you started and where you are now. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? Any plans to expand?
I hope not. I really do. It's fun to think about the building and expanding and stuff, but I think we're at a point where when we did the last expansion here in 2022, I think we gave ourselves enough capacity that, if we get to the point where we outgrow the production capacity we have here, mm-hmm. we got bigger problems. So I'm not really interested at this point in my life in taking that on. I do think there'll be other things we'll expand into though. Like we're gonna build a wedding venue out back because we get probably 5 to 6 requests a week for weddings or parties or the such. And so we'll do that. And then also, I think I'm going to start a wine university. So I get hired by people all up and down the Eastern Seaboard that want to plant vineyards or think they need to have a vineyard and winery, and they really don't have a clue what they're doing in it. They made money somewhere else, and then someone convinced them, or it was a dream they had, and they think it's just so sexy that they want to get into it. And they usually buy vines, and then at that point they call to say, hey, will you come plant my vines and install my vineyard? And I'm like, I can, but what are you going to do when I leave? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, do you own a tractor? No. Do you own a sprayer? No. Do you have a pesticide license? No. Okay. Better yet, picture July 4th weekend. Do you want to be at the country club smoking cigars, playing golf, or do you want to be out in the vineyard pulling leaves? Well, I want to be at the country club. I'm like, yeah, this probably isn't going to work for you. And the problem is they've already bought the vines, so they pay me to put the vines in and the post and the wire, and then I leave. And then a couple months later, the phone calls start. Hey, these things are growing. What do I do? Like, well, the intent was for them to grow. So, I don't want to be your vineyard consultant. I'm not there to tell you what to do. I told you shouldn't do it to begin with. So that's really going to be the goal of this new business I want to start, is convince people not to do it. And then the ones that make it through that do want to do it, we'll give them all the right contacts for all the right vendors that do it right, and will give sound advice, because there's so many consultants out there today that'll take your money that when you ask them, how many acres do you own? How long have you been farming? And it's like, well, I don't own anything. Yeah, I've been into it for 3 or 4 years, and you're going to come tell me what to do. It's like, I've got generations of mistakes we've made.
Right.
I've forgotten more about growing grapes and making wine than you'll ever know.
Right. You've lived through this.
Well, yeah, we've got mistakes, that long that we can share and tell you why not to do it.
Yeah.
And that's really the hard part, is sometimes knowing what not to do. And if you can figure that out, then the what to do is just what's left.
Yeah.
So
no, I love that idea. Definitely. You've lived it. You can give that practical advice to someone that wants to start, or maybe tell them why they maybe shouldn't start. And there's not really a lot of vineyards around here, so
right.
people need someone to
Yeah.
look to as a resource.
Yeah.
That's great. Speaking of advice,
Mm-hmm.
what is maybe the one piece of advice you would give someone that wanted to start a vineyard from your years of experience?
Go work at one for a full season.
Good.
From dormancy to post-harvest. Go work at one and find the stuff you love. Pay very close attention to the stuff you don't like, because you're going to have to do it every year. I mean, every year it's rinse and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the formula does not change. Dates may change, quantities may change, but the formula doesn't change. It's the same formula every year. So you better really love it, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So that'd be the one thing I'd say, is go find somewhere where you can just go work and get hands-on, not visit for a day or two and think you got exposed to it all. The 95-degree day with 98% humidity and you're out, pulling leaves or rolling up nets. Those are the days you need to go check yourself and go, do you really want to do this?
I love that advice.
Because sitting here in this room drinking a glass of wine is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Out there in the middle of August isn't exactly fun. So do you want to get up at 5 a.m. and work from 5 to noon and then go back at 7 at night and work till 9? Those are things you got to really consider.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, having that experience to know whether you like it or you don't like it before you start is definitely key for any job, but especially starting your own business.
Especially given how labor intensive this is and how capital intensive it is.
Very true, yes. Well, great. We'll finish up with a fun question.
Okay.
This is, obviously I have to ask you.
Oh boy.
But do you have a favorite wine?
I do.
And which one is it and why?
My favorite wine is Tiraldigo. It's an Italian red. And my style of wine that I like is big, bold, lots of oak, lots of tannin, high alcohol. And Tiraldigo just handles that beautifully. It's really dark, deep in color, really intense. And a glass of Tiraldigo you can enjoy by itself. But when you pair it with a really nice bone-in marbled ribeye, the fats and the acid just balance each other out, and it's just amazing. So that's my go-to, is a glass of Tiraldigo.
Sounds really good. Now you're making me hungry. Now, have you played with any, have you made any new varieties here? Like any that have done really successful? Yeah,
this year was the first year we did Chenin Blanc, and it sold out pretty fast. We did an Albarino this year for the first time. We just last year harvested a Tempranillo that we've never done before. So that'll be out not this year, but next year. And then this year we brought in a Petit Verdot. So that was new. And we're going to also do a Barbera Rosé, which will be a new one. So
that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us.
Oh, thanks for coming.
This was really great. I am not familiar with anything winery or vineyards, and I'm sure a lot of our members and viewers are not either. So this was really insightful for those that want to learn more.
Great.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming.